Hi everyone, welcome to Sunday School this morning or this afternoon whenever you're watching, and thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about two stories, but before we get started, why don't you, if you have a Bible, because I'm going to read out of the Bible today, if you want to go get a Bible so you can follow along with me, that would be great. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. And while you're doing that, I'm just thinking about, have you guys been good? You've been going to school, I believe. You've been in school now. And pretty soon, most of you have spring break. Now, I'm sure you all have a different spring break, but I believe Sheboygan's is 2 weeks from now. So I'm sure you're all looking forward to that. You won't have to go to school for a week, and either you're going someplace, even if you're not going someplace, you don't have to go to school and you don't have to do schoolwork. So that's always a great thing, right? Yep. So okay, you got a Bible? Are you ready? Today we're going to talk about two different stories, one about a blind man and one about Zacchaeus. So first of all, today we're going to hear a story about something that happened when Jesus arrived in a city called Jericho. Do any of you know where Jericho is? If we were all together, I could show you on a big map where it is, but I looked in my Bible, and I do have a map in the back of my Bible, which I'm thinking you maybe do too. So if you want to take a look and see if you have a map, but just looking on here where my finger is, if you can see it, that's where Jericho is. You can see Jerusalem's around there, and the Mediterranean Sea is right up here. So that's where Jesus was going with his disciples. Now, back in Bible days, they didn't go to the airport and get on a United Airline flight and go where they wanted to go, nor did they go and get their car out of the garage and drive where they wanted to go. They always had to walk, or they used donkeys. I don't know if they really even used horses, because you don't hear that much about horses. So I'm thinking they walked and they used donkeys. So just think how long that took for them to go from place to place. We go to Milwaukee, we're there practically in less than an hour now. Or just think if you had to walk. If you had to walk every place you had to go. That would take a lot longer, right? Even we're just so spoiled now with getting in our cars and going where we want to go. So at the start of today's story, Jesus and his disciples are traveling and enter Jericho. So let's see what happens when they get to Jericho or when they're close to Jericho. We'll find that out soon. So if you want to turn to your Bible we're going to read out of the book of Luke, chapter 18, verses 35 is our first story. But before we do that, our second story is going to be about Zacchaeus. He's a tax collector. Now, I don't know how much you all know about taxes, but you probably know we all have to pay taxes. You go buy something at the store and you have to buy sales tax. Your mom or dad or aunts or uncles or grandma and grandpa maybe own a house and they have to pay real estate taxes, right? You have to pay them every year. And those taxes go to pay for the firemen, police department, most of the time garbage pickup, snow plowing, anything that happens in the city that has to get paid for, right? People do it, so we have to pay them, correct? Also, we pay income taxes. So once a year, people who have an earned income have to file income taxes with the state and the federal government. If you didn't pay enough, you have to pay in, and if you paid too much, the government sends you money back. But back in Bible days, they had people called tax collectors who went around to people's houses and collected taxes. And they were not well-known people. They were not well-liked. Nobody liked them. They were sinners because most of the time they stole the people's money. They told them they needed more taxes to collect than what they really did. So I'm going to show you a little example here. Now hopefully I can turn my screen down and you can see where I have my pennies here. So I have 10 pennies. So let's say there's 5 of you, so I'm going to give you each 2 pennies. Okay? So you each have 2 pennies. Now I'm Zacchaeus the tax collector, so I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to say, you owe me each 2 cents. So you all give me your pennies. So now I have 10 cents, right? So Zacchaeus goes to the government and he says, okay, I collected these people's taxes and I got 10 cents. Well, the government says, we don't need that much taxes from them. You only had to collect 5 cents. So, okay, so I'm going to give 5 cents back to the government, and that means I have 5 cents left, right? So what should I really do with that 5 cents? I should give it back to you, right? But no, Zacchaeus doesn't do that. Zacchaeus says, I'm going to keep those 5 cents for myself because these people aren't going to know that they paid too much taxes. So, do you think that's really fair? Should he have done that? Oh, Zacchaeus should have given the money back, right? It's kind of like when I said that we file income taxes at the end of the year, and if you paid too much, you get money back, and if you didn't pay enough, you have to pay in. Well, can you imagine if you're supposed to get like $2,000 back and you didn't? The government just says, well, we're going to keep that. He doesn't need that. He'll never know the difference. You imagine how angry people would be? So just think how upset and angry people were when Zacchaeus took their money too, right? Very upset. So that's why they didn't like Zacchaeus. They didn't like any tax collectors because that's what they all did. So they were kind of thought of as not real good people, kind of sinners. You know, they basically were stealing. So people didn't really like them. However, something special happens to Zacchaeus. So let's read in our Bible and find what happens to Zacchaeus. But first of all, we're going to read the story about the blind man. So let's go back to our Bible. Chapter 18, we are going to read, starting with verse 35, and we are going to go through verse 43. So you can find the book of Luke in the New Testament, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. See if you can find verse 35. Jesus heals a blind beggar. That's what we're going to read about first. So I'll give you a couple seconds here and see if you can find that. We'll wait for you to find it. Okay, here we go. Luke chapter 18, verse 35. As Jesus was coming near Jericho, there was a blind man sitting by the road begging. When he heard the crowd passing by, he asked, "What is this?" "Jesus of Nazareth is passing by," they told him. He cried out, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." The people in front scolded him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." So Jesus stopped and ordered the blind man to be brought to him. When he came near, Jesus asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" "Sir," he answered, "I want to see again." Jesus said to him, "Then see, your faith has made you well." At once he was able to see, and he followed Jesus, giving thanks to God. When the crowd saw it, they were all praised God. So here we have this blind man who, can't see Jesus, can't see how many people are in front of him, but he's just hollering to Jesus that he wants to be saved, right? And Jesus kind of looked him out and found him, said, "Bring him to me." And what happened? Jesus healed him so he could see. Can you imagine if you couldn't see and all of a sudden someone said, "Now you'll see," and just like that you can see things? Yeah, pretty wild, huh? I'm sure the people were like, wow, Jesus did this. He saved him. He could see again. So it's kind of a cool story. But our next story is about Zacchaeus, about the tax collector. You know what we were just talking about, how no one really liked tax collectors. So let's get to the book of Luke, chapter 19, verse 1. Jesus and Zacchaeus. So it's right after what we just got done reading. So if you're following along, you should be right there. Jesus went on into Jericho and was passing through. There was a chief tax collector there named Zacchaeus, who was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but he was a little man and could not see Jesus because of the crowd. So he ran ahead of the crowd and climbed a sycamore tree to see Jesus, who was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to Zacchaeus, "Hurry down, Zacchaeus, because I must stay in your house today." Zacchaeus hurried down and welcomed him with great joy. All the people who saw it started grumbling. "This man has gone as a guest to the home of a sinner?" Remember, they didn't like tax collectors. They were considered sinners because They were stealing money from people. Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Listen, sir, I will give half my belongings to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone, I will pay him back 4 times as much." And that's a lot of money. Jesus said to him, "Salvation has come to this house today, for this man also is a descendant of Abraham. The Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." So look at Zacchaeus, a sinner up in the tree, and he gets saved, and of course people weren't happy, right? So, what did Jesus do before he entered Jericho? Now, if you were listening or reading along, it does say when Jesus was coming near Jericho, that's when he saved the blind man. He wasn't quite in Jericho yet, he was coming into Jericho. So that's when he saved the blind man. What does Zacchaeus do when he sees Jesus walking through Jericho? Remember, Zacchaeus is a shorter man and he couldn't see over the crowd. So what did Zacchaeus do? He ran ahead, right? Climbed up a sycamore tree. And I did look up sycamore trees and found out that they are a very big tree. So he probably had to climb quite a ways to get up in that tree. So what does Jesus do when he sees Zacchaeus? Well, first of all, let's think about this. Zacchaeus is up in a tree, and Jesus is walking past, and there's probably all kinds of people around. So in order for Jesus to see Zacchaeus, he really kind of had to be looking for him, right? He must have known that he was going to find him, because he had to look up and like, oh yeah, there's Zacchaeus up in the tree. So what does he do? Tells Zacchaeus, come on down, I want to talk to you. So Jesus looks up and he sees Zacchaeus in the tree. So like I said, he had to be looking for him, right? So he tells Zacchaeus to come on down. He tells Zacchaeus, come on down, I want to stay at your house tonight. So what do you think people in the crowd think? Here's Zacchaeus, a sinner, and God says, and Jesus says to him, come on, I'm going to stay at your house. I'm sure they weren't happy, right? Because Zacchaeus was a big sinner. So at the end of the story, what does Zacchaeus decide to do? He decides to give away half of his possessions and pay back 4 times to people that he stole from. So it was a big deal back then that Jesus went to Zacchaeus' house. People did not like him, but Jesus still loved Zacchaeus. This changed Zacchaeus. He admitted his wrongs and worked to make things right. So in today's story, Jesus kind of sought Zacchaeus out, right? He didn't really know he was up in that tree. So you've probably been wondering what I have hanging around my neck. Well, what I made was some binoculars, which you can make these at home also. Just take 2 toilet paper rolls, masking tape, mask them together, put holes in the side, and put yarn in them, and then you can hang them around your neck. Now you can decorate them also. I didn't do that because I just didn't take the time to do it, but you could probably make them really pretty with paint or crayons or markers, whatever you want to use. So I made these because, you know, in both stories today, Jesus kind of sought out these people. You know, the blind man was behind a crowd. Jesus, he heard him, but he didn't really know what he looked like. So he told the people, bring him out, bring him out. So Jesus sought him out, just like you can with your binoculars, right? You can see things. You can see things far away with binoculars. So the blind man came out and Jesus healed him. Kind of like Zacchaeus. Like I said, you know, Zacchaeus was way up in the tree, and here's Jesus walking with all kinds of people around him. So he kind of knew he was looking for Zacchaeus. So get out the binoculars and look for Zacchaeus up in the tree. Likewise, Zacchaeus was looking for Jesus because he knew Jesus wouldn't be able to see him because he was a shorter man and he was behind the crowd. So that's why he climbed up in the tree. So we can kind of use our binoculars to seek out people also. Like, you know, if you're someone at school maybe that doesn't have anyone to play with or is being bullied, or anyone who needs someone to talk to. Sometimes you might be the one that needs someone to play with, or you're being bullied and you need a friend. You remember back when we had Vacation Bible School that we did buddy benches. We talked about buddy benches a lot, and we even bought one for Jefferson School. That, you know, if someone was lonely or didn't have someone to play with, that they could go sit on the buddy bench and someone would come and sit with them or talk to them and give them someone to play with, right? Yeah. So, you know, you can kind of take your binoculars and seek out people that maybe need help or just need someone to talk to. Kind of like in our story today, how Jesus, Jesus was way above and beyond what we can do. We couldn't heal a blind man or stay at a taxpayer's house and get him to pay all his money back, but we can still help people, which is, kind of like doing what Jesus wants us to do. So let's talk about God sightings and highs and lows. Now, last week, Aaron Robley sent in his God sightings and highs and lows, which you can do also. If you want us to say what yours were, you can send them into Dar At, and the next person to teach Sunday school will bring them up on the lesson. So Aaron's God sighting is that it was really warm this week. You might not say it on the thermometer, but to him it feels really warm because he was used to 20 degrees or lower, right? That's how we are in Wisconsin. In winter, once it gets to be in the 20s and 30s, we think we're having a heat wave because we're so used to it being below zero like it was about a month ago. So last week it was really nice, and hopefully you all got outside and at least went for a walk or did something outside because it was really nice out. So that was his God sighting. His high was that he got to spend a lot of time with his dog, and he was able to go to his grandma's house for a while to play with toys, card games, and watch a movie. His low was he didn't get to spend much time playing Minecraft, his favorite game. Minecraft is a video game, I believe, that Aaron likes to play because quite often he brings that up, that he got to play and he got to where he wanted to do. I think him and his dad play it quite often. So that's, as a low, he didn't get to play it that often this time. So think about your God sighting this last week and your highs and lows. Now right now I don't have a God sighting yet this week, but I'm sure one will come. For my highs and lows, I think last weekend my 2 grandchildren came and stayed with us Saturday night and slept overnight, which they live in the Madison area, so I don't get to see them as often. But the low was that they had to go home on Sunday, so they weren't with us real long. But it was still nice to see them, and they are coming back in another week, so I'm looking forward to that, to see them again. So let's close with a prayer. Dear God, thank you for finding us and loving us. Thank you for loving everyone who is lost. Help us remember that you are always with us. Amen. Bye guys, have a good week, and I will see you the next time I teach Sunday school. Bye-bye.